Hello, everyone. Welcome to Donna Just Being Real, the only way to be. All right, so once again, we're back with this Johnny Depp and Amber Heard face-off in court. Okay, so that's what today's topic is, and it's a semi-silent live. So today, I'm going to show date. Well, we up to day 13. I got to catch up. We up to day 13. I'm going to show a little bit of what happened on day 12. And the reason I want to show that clip is one of his bodyguards, Johnny Depp's bodyguards, and he witnessed a lot of abuse that he went through with Amber Heard. This chick is like off the hook, okay? Then we're gonna show a little bit of today's day 13. A clip of day 13. Now I didn't get a chance to see day 13. I didn't get a chance to see all of it. I just saw a little bit bits and pieces, but it was pretty interesting. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. My channel is about dating, love, relationship, toxic relationship, and I touch on true crimes and passion as a teaching tool to teach people, to be aware of toxic people out here, to date smart, not thirsty, love yourself, respect yourself, and make sure the person that you're involved with does the same too, okay? You don't need to be wasting your time in a relationship with someone who's abusing you mentally, physically, financially, who doesn't respect your time, doesn't value you. It's time to move on. Okay, so Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were married once before, but then they broke up. It was a whole lot of drama, whatever. But she basically put out a news article, but she didn't quite say his name, right? But it ended up going like, okay, let me read this here. Mr. Depp is suing for $50 million over the opinion piece written by ex-wife, Miss Heard, in the Washington Post, in which she claims to have experienced domestic violence. Miss Heard is countersuing. Okay, so she claimed that she was, a victim of domestic violence at the hand of Johnny Depp. Now I've been following this trial. Honey. You listen to some of those audios. I think he was a victim, and he basically hid it. He kept it quiet because he loved her so much. He was protecting her. Not good. But I guess when that article came out, he just got fed up because it was all over the press. Everybody looking at him as a woman beater. And, this was messing him up at work. He wasn't getting roles. He couldn't continue to pirate or whatever, certain things that he was doing. So it was affecting his money and his reputation. So defamation of character. So that's why he's taking her to court right now. Okay. So let me greet the few people that's here right now. And then we're going to get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So don't need a man, stop telling me I do. Hugs and kisses to you, beautiful mod on deck. Okay, that's a little bit what my channel is all about. So topic, like I said again, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard face off in court, and I'll be showing clips. Okay, make sure you vote. And Teresa Myers, blessings to you. Good afternoon to you too. Hugs and kisses, hugs and kisses, hugs and kisses, and hugs and kisses. That's right, my purple hearts. And hit the like button. Okay, let's get into this, okay? Let's get into this. I know I've been doing a lot of this commentary, but the reason why I've been doing a lot of it, because I want people to learn from this, okay? Men get abused too. It's not just women. But a lot of people want to laugh it off when a man get abused. They're like, I don't understand. How do you let a woman hit you, whatever? It's because they believe in you're not supposed to hit a woman. You're supposed to respect a woman. But how you say, not because he's a punk, he just doesn't want to hit a woman. But there was times he tried to walk away, and when he tried to walk away, she come charging at him. So no, she's the violent one. All right, I just said I was gonna get into this clip. All right, so give me a second. Let me share the screen. And the people that's watching replay, please share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. And also tell me, what is your favorite Johnny Depp movie? Are you a Johnny Depp fan or not? Did you hear about this? Are you watching this? Do you find this to be interesting? I don't know. This shade, though, maybe you might not even find it be interesting. You don't even want to watch it. I don't know. Whatever. But just share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. All right, let me share this. All right, there's certain parts I'm gonna have to fast forward because they was like waiting for the jury to come in, waiting for the judge to come in. But I'm just gonna show the beginning when he pulls up to court and how he gets cheered, and when Amber Heard pulls up, everybody's like boo, boo, boo. Mm, mm, mm. Evil woman. All right, let's get it here. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah. Okay, let's get it. In the sea, let it be. I forgot to say, this is day 12 I'm showing. I'm showing a clip of day 12. Today is day 13, but we're doing the day 12 because I want you to hear what the bodyguard had to say that he witnessed. Here we go. Let's get it.
More into this. Take a look. Personal property, over the balcony, into the streets, not the door.
You again. When you say personal property, what are you referring to?
Thank you, you too. His phone, wallet, credit.
Can I help with anything?
Yeah, I can.
Sure. Still wait a second. Good.
How are you? I'm all right.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, fast forward so we can get to what's happening.
If you notice your body starting to ache, your hair starting to thin, or
Your next witness.
Your Honor, we call Travis McGivern by video link.
All right. Mr. McGivern, can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Can you do me a favor and just count to 5 for me so I can get you to pop up on my big screen here?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, now can you turn your camera?
When he was, giving his testimony, it's going to be kind of like pauses. I think his camera wasn't working too well, so I just want to let you know. But I'm going to put this on a little bit of a faster speed. And if it's a little too fast for you to catch up, let me know, and I'll just put on normal speed. But I'm going to put on speed 125. Let's get it.
Camera on?
I thought it was on.
There we go. Yes, sir. Now I can see you.
Okay.
If you could raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. McGivern.
Good morning.
Could you please state your full name for the record?
Travis Edward McGivern,
And where do you currently live?
Los Angeles, California.
Defying from.
Los Angeles.
Your current occupation.
A security professional.
And
A little over 16 years.
do you know the plaintiff?
In LA, when he wants to go in, I'll take 3. Protected his children before. Yeah, just basically.
And are you currently?
Mr. Depp's travel schedule is pretty regular, so when he's not in town, work slows down a little bit. So I have actually in the last 6 months picked up a full-time job, another client.
When you for Mr. Depp, how often would you see him in person?
Hard to say. When he's in town, I saw him on a daily and or nightly basis. I work nights mostly. Obviously when he's out of town that changes, but yeah, when he's in town, pretty much daily.
When did you first meet Miss Heard?
Again, I couldn't give you an exact date, but I would say sometime in 2013, maybe summer 2013.
And when you were working for Mr. Depp, how often would you see Miss Heard when they were in a relationship?
In the beginning, not very often. At one to became a little more frequent.
When Mr. Depp and Miss Heard were staying at the building together, how often would you actually be in their apartment?
The E building that they talking about, that was the what I showed the other day at Johnny Depp's home, Eastern Tower or something's called. It's in California. All right, I resume.
That would vary depending on patient. Would be my best estimate. Again, it depends. Wouldn't see them at all.
You can sip on just this all day, and it will train your body to become a
few times a week.
Did you have occasion Depp and Miss Heard interact with each other?
I did, yes.
And how often would?
Well, anytime I was physically interacting, so I'd say a few. Several.
How would you describe the interactions between Mr. Depp and Miss Heard?
It would depend. I mean, it would depend. There were super loving, super happy, and then the next night they could be arguing. And initially, when I first started working down at they were cool. Then more than moving forward. Well, the longer they were there.
Start more arguments between.
So I want to say like the end of 20, they started staying a few. And I mean, it was just verbal arguments, yelling. It was typically wanting to get out of there. And so they're trying to convince. Yeah, I mean, lots of things. You know.
And who was the name calling directed at?
Typically toward Mr.
And what do you recall Ms. Heard saying in those instances?
Oh dear. Heard call him a fucking deadbeat dad, if I can say that. I apologize to the court. If a fucking washed up, fucking cunt, you name it. She's spewed it.
How would you describe your own interactions with Ms. Heard in the time that you worked for Mr. Depp?
All right, what's the relevance of his interactions?
His interactions when he was involved in when he was witnessing these altercations.
We want to ask that question.
Okay. How would you describe your interactions with Ms. Heard when you were present during an altercation between her and Mr. Depp?
For the most part, there wasn't really interaction. There were a few times where I was trying to get Mr. Depp away from the situation, and Ms. Heard didn't like my involvement in the situation, and she, on one occasion, let me know how she felt about that.
And what did she say to you in that instance?
A lot. It was a lengthy, one-sided conversation, but she basically demeaned my career choice, called me a fucking yes man. And honestly, there were parts of that where she, she was like, how would you feel if someone was involved in your relationship? Which I sympathize with. But yeah, she definitely threw some shade on me and my chosen career.
Now, you mentioned that the arguments between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard increased
when they returned from Australia
She's
in March
trifling.
2015.
When did you first see Ms. Heard when she returned from Australia?
So I picked Ms. Heard up from the airport on March 9th. Yeah, that was the first time I saw her when she got back.
And who else was with her?
A gentleman named Ben King, who I later found out, I didn't know who he was initially, but later found out he was the house manager or property estate manager of the place they were staying at in Australia.
How would you describe Ms. Heard's demeanor when you picked her up at the airport?
She seemed normal, nothing out of the ordinary. She was pleasant, she was polite, like she usually was.
How much time did you spend with Ms. Heard that day?
Not a lot, but at least the car ride from LAX to downtown LA to the lofts. Couldn't tell you how long that took, but probably 45 minutes to an hour. I believe I escorted them or helped them up to penthouse 3 and was maybe in there for very, very briefly, a minute or two, and then I left. So overall, let's estimate an hour.
And how close to Miss Heard were you that day?
I mean, in the car where I'm driving, she's in the seat right behind me to my right, so there's a few feet there. I think when I picked him up, I don't remember if I hugged her or not, but I know I probably grabbed some luggage, so I was within a few feet.
And what time of day was it when Miss Heard arrived at the airport?
Early afternoon. I want to say they landed at around 1 p.m.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on Miss Heard that day?
I didn't notice any injuries.
When did you first see Mr. Depp when he returned from Australia in March 2015?
I don't know, to be honest. I know it was after Miss Heard came, but I couldn't give you an exact date.
And what, if any, injuries did you observe on Mr. Depp when he returned from Australia?
So Mr. Depp had his right hand, heavily wrapped. I didn't actually see an injury, but his hand was wrapped.
Now, you mentioned that the arguments between Mr. Depp and Miss Heard increased after they returned from Australia. What arguments do you recall specifically?
One in particular stands out. March 23rd, a couple weeks after they got back, there was an incident in Penthouse 5 that I recall.
And when did you start your shift that day?
11 p.m.
Ladies and gentlemen, listen clearly.
Start time.
He's going to get into some deep stuff.
And where were you on your shift?
So at the loft, there was kind of a makeshift command post CP or guard shack or whatever it's called. That was in a storage room connected to Penthouse 5 via a patio. So you'd leave Penthouse 5, go to a patio, and then our CP was connected to that patio. That's typically where we hang out during our shifts.
And what time were you first contacted by Mr. Depp that evening?
Again, I can't say precisely, but between 4 and probably around 4 a.m., 4:30 maybe.
And what did you do after Mr. Depp contacted you?
So when he texted me, and I was downstairs. I don't remember exactly what I was doing, either getting some air, stretching my legs, or grabbing some food. But I remember getting the text. I wasn't in the CP when I got the text. He requested I meet him at Penthouse 5 and requested that I bring his nurse that was working at that time with him.
What was her name?
Debbie Lloyd.
And so what did you go get Miss Lloyd?
I did. So Miss Lloyd was staying at a hotel close by, probably about a half.
I would love to see what she's writing over there.
4 a.m. I wasn't gonna, and Mr. Depp wouldn't have wanted me to have her walk by herself. But I wasn't gonna go get the truck either, since I was down there already. So I walked over to the hotel. I believe I called the nurse just to make sure she woke up. And then I walked to the hotel and I met her there. We walked over together to the Eastern Columbia building. In the lobby, we ran into Miss Heard. She was at the front desk talking to security or concierge, I'm not sure who. Miss Lloyd stayed downstairs with Miss Heard. I proceeded upstairs to meet Mr. Depp at Penthouse 5 as requested. Was hoping to get him out of there before Miss Heard came back up, just because of past.
Sorry, why was that?
Just because past experiences, when they would argue she would try to prevent us from leaving. To the point, I mean, she's held the elevator before. She's physically tried to keep Mr. Depp from leaving by grabbing his arm or standing in front of him. I just wanted to get out of there to avoid that.
And what happened when you got upstairs to the penthouse?
So Mr. Depp was sitting in front of the front door of Penthouse 5.
Exactly, busy.
He had
She's
some bags
busy
that
doing
He
nothing.
was ready to go. I greeted him, kind of got a feel for what was going on, tried to get him out of there.
The bodyguard.
I believe Miss Heard and Miss Lloyd exited the elevator on the penthouse level, so they came back up, and Mr. Depp and Miss Heard decided they wanted to continue whatever conversation they were having. So I let them into Penthouse 5. Myself, Miss Lloyd, Mr. Depp, and Miss Heard entered Penthouse 5. I tried to stay out of their conversations as long as they were peaceful. So they were having a relatively peaceful conversation. So Miss Lloyd and I stood outside the door of Penthouse 5, had the door propped open to make sure we could hear what was going on, but kind of giving them their space initially.
And you said initially, what happened after that?
So the conversation got a little louder, got a little more volatile. So Miss Lloyd and myself entered Penthouse 5 just to be around, to hopefully be able to not necessarily mediate, but just to be there. So yeah, entered, stood a little closer to Mr. Depp.
And what did you observe when you went back into the penthouse?
So the argument continued. There were moments of kind of normal conversation, peaceful conversation, but then there were also moments of yelling and anger from both of them. And at some point I witnessed Miss Heard throw a Red Bull can. So the loft is 3 levels. Mr. Depp was down at the lower level, which is the kitchen area. There's a middle level, which was turned into an office for Miss Heard. And then
our office is awesome,
but not everyone is there.
Upper level was where the bedrooms were, but they were turned into closets basically for Miss Heard at that time. Miss Heard and her sister at that time, Whitney, had come in. They were both on the middle level, the office level. And I saw Miss Heard throw a Red Bull can from her position that struck Mr. Depp in the back.
Anything else that you recall?
At that point, I moved closer to Mr. Depp. I didn't care that I was in the middle of their conversation at that point. I didn't want my client getting hit with anything else. So I stood right by Mr. Depp. The verbal onslaught continued from both of them. Mr. Depp was giving as good as he got at that point. He was angry and agitated. At one point, Miss Heard threw something else, either a purse or some sort of bag or something that she had up there. I was able to knock it away so it didn't hit him. At one point, she spit at him. Yeah, and then just a lot of verbal vitriol from both of them.
I had to pause that. Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear what he just said? That she had spit at him? That's disgusting for someone to spit at you. That's just, I think it's even, I don't know, maybe y'all might think of it differently, but that's even worse than somebody slapping you. For somebody to spit at you, it is so disrespectful. And she spit at this man, her husband, Johnny Depp. This chick is totally out of her flipping mind. And another thing about what abuse is, if a person can abuse you mentally, physically, verbally, or whatever in front of people, imagine what happens when no one is around. That's what's scary. I will resume. Tell me if you agree with me or disagree. Put in the comments. Resume.
What do you remember Ms. Heard saying to Mr. Depp on this occasion?
Jeez. Anything and everything. Specifically, there was the "you're fucking washed up," "you're a fucking cunt," which he called her as well. You're, again, the deadbeat dad shit. Yeah, I don't even remember what the fight was about, but it was pretty. The F word is my favorite word, and it was being thrown around to the point where I was uncomfortable. So.
And how did Mr. Depp respond to Ms. Heard's behavior?
Oh, he was mad. He was upset, especially after she tried to spit on him. At one point, Miss Heard and her sister left Penthouse 5. I imagine they went into Penthouse 4 or possibly over to Penthouse 3. I don't know. They were all adjoining. Mr. Depp went upstairs and rearranged her closet for her. Threw down probably every rack of clothing and shoes. Threw at least one down the stairs. Yeah, he was upset.
Where was Ms. Heard when Mr. Depp rearranged her closet, as you said?
Can't say for sure, but she was not in Penthouse 5. She was either in 4 or 3.
And you mentioned Ms. Heard's sister, Whitney. Do you recall when she arrived in the evening?
So Whitney wasn't there when we first all walked into Penthouse 5. When Miss Lloyd and I stepped out to give them some space, she must have excuse me. She must have come in at some point because she was in there when we walked back.
Did you see Ms. Heard again that evening
After Mr. Depp was in her closet.
Get the votes up. Get the votes up.
I did, yeah. She must have heard what was going on and not been too pleased. So she shortly after re-entered Penthouse 5 as I was trying to get Mr. Depp out of there.
And what happened at that point?
So her and her sister both came back in. We were on the middle level, so her office level of Penthouse 5 at that point. She was agitated. Mr. Depp was agitated. I felt it was time to get Mr. Depp out of the situation, so I stepped in between Miss Heard and Mr. Depp, telling Mr. Depp that we were leaving and that it wasn't up to him anymore. At that point, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a fist and an arm come across my right shoulder, and I heard and saw a closed fist contact Mr. Depp in the left side of his face.
And whose fist was that?
That was Miss Heard's fist, Amber Heard's fist.
And where was Whitney when this occurred?
You hear this? She's throwing fists at him like she's some sort of dude. This woman is evil. I think she's evil. I think Jada Pinkett Smith, or Will Smith, I think he's going through the same thing. I don't know if she's putting his hands on, but he's going through some form of abuse. And I also think that Mike Tyson, when he was with Robin Givens, soon as this is over with, I'm going to get into all three of these evil women. And I'm going to focus on Jada Pinkett Smith, and I'm going to focus on Robin Givens, and I'm going to focus on this Amber Heard. I have something to say about all three of them. And I wanted to talk about Jada Pinkett Smith with everything about the whole slap, but I just let it go. And Jack did some commentary. If y'all want to check out the real Jack Newtown, he did commentary on it too. But I was like, I'm just going to wait a little bit later because I just want to focus on the women. Because, ladies and gentlemen, men get abused too. I'll resume.
Can't say for sure, but I'm guessing, or my best guess is behind Amber.
How did Mr. Depp respond when he was punched?
The initial look on his face kind of mirrored mine, kind of a look of shock, like what just happened? Where'd that come from? At that point, I wasn't going to let Mr. Depp get hit anymore, so I moved him down the last flight of stairs to the lower level, and told him we're leaving. It wasn't up to him anymore, just for his.
He said he told Mr. Depp he had to move him because he's not going to let him get hit anymore. Are y'all listening to this? I just hope y'all following this. I had to show this one. Like I said, the people's coming in here late. This is from day 12. We up to day 13. Today was day 13 in the court, but this is day 12, a testimony. And I wanted to play this because, bodyguards, they see everything. They know all the stuff, the ins and outs. And he had to move him for his safety from his wife. This chick is evil. Resume.
Safety. I didn't, again, I had let him get hit by a Red Bull can. I let him get punched. My job is to ensure the safety and well-being of my clients, and I felt like I hadn't done that. So it was my time to do my job and get him out of there.
And so where did you go?
So Miss Heard and her sister left Penthouse 5. Again, I don't know where they went. I'm assuming they went through Penthouse 4. We're either in 4 or 3. Mr. Depp was not pleased with me.
Now you hear what he's talking about, the sister. Amber Heard's sister was basically living in one of these penthouses because he has several penthouses and living in for free. And her, the sister and the friends and everybody. So they was all like, hey, let's just take advantage of the old guy. I'm just saying that because, she's way younger than him. So what she was probably thinking, like, oh, my husband, he's so old, he's stupid. He'll do whatever I say. Y'all just come on over here and just live it up. He'll buy all the booze. He'll buy all the drugs. He'll buy all the food. And y'all ain't got to do nothing. And you ain't even got to clean up because his maids and servants are clean. And I was thinking about that the other day. And I said, the people that clean his place up, right? They probably so happy that Amber Heard left because they didn't have to deal with this crap no more. Clean up every night was a party, clean up drugs and liquor bottles and, it's just a mess. So it's like less work for them. I resume. I think past the picture. I like to go deep and think about everybody else's, side. I resume.
Naturally. He went into the bathroom for a couple minutes. Miss Lloyd talked to him, and they came out and agreed that it was time to leave. So as we were leaving the front door, Mr. Depp got right in my face. He was wearing sunglasses, and maybe not sunglasses. He was wearing glasses. Pulled him down, pointed to the left side of his face, and told me, "That's your fault." And I agreed. And then we proceeded to the vehicle and we left the loft.
What did you see on the left side of Mr. Depp's face?
There was already a nice little shiner. Definitely swollen and red. It wasn't black and blue yet, but it was definitely swollen and red.
At any point during this incident, did Mr. Depp throw anything at Miss Heard?
No.
At any point, did Mr. Depp throw anything at anyone?
No.
At any time during this incident, did Mr. Depp physically respond to Miss Heard?
No.
Do you recall Miss Heard's birthday party in April of 2016?
I do.
Mr. McGivern, during the incident we just discussed on March 23rd.
When people look at films that are super beloved and they
what did Mr. Depp have on his right hand?
So he had the same bandage that he had when he arrived from Australia. So it was heavily wrapped. Yeah, a heavily wrapped bandage. I don't know what was underneath, but it was definitely wrapped.
Do you recall whether it was a hard or a soft cast?
I do not.
Now, moving forward to Ms. Heard's birthday party in April 2016, were you present at that dinner party?
I was not. I started my shift again around 11 p.m. The party was going on in Penthouse 5. I don't typically take part in get-togethers, so I think I probably hung out in the CP. Shortly after I got there, the party kind of winded down. I believe Mr. Depp got there. He was late. So I think he got there shortly after I started my shift. He went into Penthouse 5. Again, the party wound down shortly thereafter. And then, as far as I know, Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard went back to Penthouse 3 shortly thereafter.
Did you see Mr. Depp again that evening?
That morning I did. Early that morning, yeah. Or the following morning. Again, I got a text. My best guess is around the same time, 4. There were so many incidences. They're hard to keep straight, but probably around 4 or 5 that morning, requesting my presence in Penthouse 3.
And what did you do after you received that text message?
Went to Penthouse 3.
And what did you observe when you went to Penthouse 3?
Again, a verbal argument. I think it was made clear that some phones had been thrown out the window or something, down to Broadway. Mr. Depp was again ready to leave, to get out of the situation. He had his couple bags over his shoulders. Wanted to grab a few valuables that we always used to grab when this happened.
My girl naturally came up in here. All right, so naturally, what did you think about what this bodyguard was saying? She throwing Red Bulls at him and stuff, spitting at him. You know, this woman is insane. She's completely insane. And good evening, naturally. And how are you today? I'm like, what did you think of this crap? I was like, when I was listening to what this bodyguard was saying, are you kidding me? You know, and he covered up everything for this woman, everything, because he loved her. All right, let me resume. Oh, and naturally, did you catch today? I'm going to show a little bit of a clip of what happened today. I didn't get a chance to catch all of today, so I'm kind of like a little bit behind, but I wanted to show today because this is day 12. Yesterday. No. Yeah, yesterday, day 12. But today, they're up to day 13. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I resume. Yeah, she's nasty, right? Nasty. Who the hell spits at their husband? You don't spit at nobody. I think that's worse than a slap, naturally. That's worse than a slap. Oh, let me calm down. I resume.
Some framed letters from either Hunter S. Thompson or Marlon Brando. Yeah, and then I believe we left. I think I got him out of the situation again. We did look for the phone briefly, I think, on our way back to West Hollywood. But my main concern was getting him away from the situation, so I didn't find the phone. And then we proceeded back to his suites or properties.
What do you recall about Ms. Heard's demeanor that evening when you saw her?
Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing that. I mean, they were arguing like usual in those circumstances, but nothing pops out.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on Ms. Heard that evening?
I didn't notice any injuries.
In your time working for
Mr.
Mr.
Depp, have you ever seen Mr. Depp
Frugal,
physically abuse Ms. Heard?
insane.
I have not.
Now, you mentioned a couple occasions. How many times have you witnessed Ms. Heard be physically abusive towards Mr. Depp?
With Home Chef,
Obviously, the March 23rd thing in Penthouse 5. Physically abusive. I don't know how to define that, but I have seen her physically try to prevent him from leaving before.
I think that's what he was trying to do,
Grabbing
Busy.
his arms, standing in front of him, pushing him. Yeah, again, I don't know if that's physically abusive, but that I've definitely seen her touch him on multiple occasions.
Have you ever observed Mr. Depp use any
Jack!
And what drugs have you seen Mr. Depp use?
Are you talking non-prescription drugs?
Yes.
Marijuana and cocaine.
How many times have you seen Mr. Depp use marijuana?
I have to pause for a second. Jack, hope you're hearing me here. Do you know that this trifling woman spit at him, throwing Red Bull, knocking him in the face, all kind of crazy. This is the one of his bodyguards and testifying, talking about the abuse that this man went through.
I'm not surprised.
What kind of shit is? Who do you spit on somebody? That's worse than a slap, Jack. What is this?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's why people got on me a couple years ago, railing against her, because they thinking like, you're just covering up for John. I said, no, Johnny's a druggie. He's a drunkie.
Mm-hmm.
He's an alcoholic. He's a crackhead. But him being a beater, I don't see that. I mean, he's very passive, extremely passive. Rapist, absolutely not. That man wouldn't even harm a fly.
Oh yeah, I forgot. She did say that too, didn't she?
Yeah, but she told the psychologist that, but the psychologist wasn't there when it happened, or no proof, no paperwork. Where's the rape charges? Where's the domestic violence arrest?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the paperwork? When it boils down to it, because I mean, she's a pathological liar. We all know that.
Yes.
Then she threw her father on the bus, claimed that he beat on her.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's true or not. He's gonna have to defend himself now. But she threw her daddy on the bus. So daddy's gonna have to go on that stand and clear his name up.
This woman is pure evil. Okay, I'll resume. And welcome, Jack. Thank you for being here. My co-host, the real Jack Newtown. All right, I'll resume. Oh, Jack, this is day 12. Today's actually day 13, but I'm showing day 12 because I want to show what the bodyguard witnessed of all this crazy stuff. And then I'm gonna shoot to a little bit of day 13 of what happened today. And I have it on speed 1.25. All right, I resume.
Too many to count. I mean, daily.
And how many times have you seen Mr. Depp use cocaine?
A couple. 2.
How would you describe Mr. Depp's demeanor when he's using marijuana?
Chill, for lack of a better word. Mellow. Yeah, I don't know how to better describe it. Just super mellow.
And how would you describe Mr. Depp's demeanor when you've seen him use cocaine?
The same. So I've seen him use it, seen him use it a few times. I've known of him using it other times, and I feel like it levels him out. I haven't noticed any difference when he's used it.
Have you observed Mr. Depp consume alcohol?
Absolutely.
And how many times?
Like marijuana, too many to count. Pretty regularly.
And on how many of those occasions did Mr. Depp appear to be drunk?
It would depend on what you mean by drunk, but not many. The only time I would say I've seen Mr. Depp drunk was when he would fall asleep on the couch, sitting up with his boots on. Other than that, Mr. Depp handles his liquor very well.
How would you describe Mr. Depp's demeanor when you've seen him consume alcohol?
No different than any other time. Again, super chill, super mellow. Yeah.
Have you ever witnessed Ms. Heard consume alcohol?
I have.
How many times would you estimate?
Again, too many to count. She drank fairly regularly. So I couldn't even give you a guesstimate.
On how many of those occasions did you observe Ms. Heard behaving drunk?
Can't say I've, other than the incident March 23rd, where I didn't see her drinking, but I assume based on her behavior, she was drunk. Other than that.
Do you experience anxiety in social or group settings? If so, you may be able
her
Ladies and gentlemen, can I speed it up to 1.5? Yeah, 1.5. Is that okay with y'all? Let me know. Or you want me to keep it at this speed, 1.25? So I don't want to hold you here all night, and I want to show the a little bit of clip of day 13 today. Put a 1 to speed up, put a 2, leave it. Tick tock, tick tock. 1 to speed it up, 2 to leave it where it's at. Okay, I can speed. All right, let me give me another 1. Give me another 1. I'm just gonna speed it. All right, let's speed it up.
obviously drunk in my eyes.
I have no further
All
questions.
right, cross-examination, Mr. Ruttenborn. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. McGivern.
Good morning, sir.
So you said you've worked for Mr. Depp for about 9 years, right?
Correct.
And he hasn't been in town recently, so you have another job. Is that what you said?
Yes.
But you still consider yourself an employee of his even today, correct?
I do.
And when you do work for Mr. Depp, he pays your salary, right?
Not on salary. He pays my wage. Yes.
He pays the money that you make for working for him.
Correct.
And you've referred to him a few times during your testimony this morning as your client. Is that right?
Yes.
So when you're working security for Mr. Depp, it's Mr. Depp and Mr. Depp alone that is your client, correct?
That is not correct.
Well, in the altercation that you testified about with Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp, you referred to only Mr. Depp as your client, and it was your job to keep your client safe. Do you remember that?
Objection compound.
I'll allow that.
I do.
So at least in that instance, he was your client, not Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct.
Now, the evening of March 23rd, 2015, you actually walked into the middle of the argument with Debbie Lloyd, correct?
Yes.
So you testified earlier that you were downstairs and Ms. Heard was downstairs in the lobby and you'd gotten Ms. Lloyd, but that's actually not accurate, is it?
To the best of my recollection, that is accurate.
In fact, when you and Ms. Lloyd entered Penthouse 5, Amber and Mr. Depp were already in there having a verbal argument, correct?
That is not correct.
May I approach, John?
All right, yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. McGivern, do you see a document on the screen in front of you entitled Witness Statement of Travis McGivern?
I do.
And you, well, let me ask you this. Is that your address below?
The document's pretty small. Is there any way for me to? Oh, there we go. Yes, it is.
And that's where you currently live?
Hang on one sec. I'm sorry. That is a P.O. box.
Okay. Is that yours?
It is.
Okay. Now, this is a witness statement that you prepared on behalf of Mr. Depp in the UK trial, correct?
Yeah, the statement went away. Oh, there it is.
You see it?
Yes, it is.
And who drafted this statement?
Myself, along with an attorney. I don't remember exactly who.
Was it Adam Waldman?
At that point, I don't believe it was. No.
If you go to paragraph 5, please, on the second page. And you understood when you wrote the statement that this was going to be submitted to a court in the UK trial that Mr. Depp brought, and that this was your testimony on behalf of Mr. Depp, correct?
Yes.
And about 2/3 of the way through paragraph 5, there's a sentence that says, when Ms. Lloyd and I entered his residence, Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp were having a verbal argument. Is that correct? Did I read that right?
That is, yes.
So that doesn't say anything about you meeting Ms. Heard in the lobby of the Eastern Columbia building, does it?
No, it does not.
And when you entered the penthouse, you can't recall the specifics of what the argument was about, correct? Take that.
No, like what they were fighting about? Absolutely, no, I don't.
And you don't
Abby,
know
no,
anything
you
about what
didn't just
caused the
come in here
argument
like
in the first
that.
place,
Hugs and kisses,
correct? You do remember
beautiful.
Mr. Depp being very angry, right?
I remember both of them being very angry, yes.
And you say that he gave as good as he got when it came to what they were saying to each other, right?
Yes.
You say they were both being verbally abusive to one another?
Yes.
And you testified that at some point, Ms. Heard was on the mezzanine level, right? The level of her office, or kind of the middle level of the penthouse?
That's correct.
And Mr. Depp was on the lower level, correct, when you entered the penthouse?
So when Miss Lloyd and I re-entered the penthouse, yes, that's where they were.
And you weren't preventing Mr. Depp from leaving at any time, correct?
Preventing him from leaving? I was encouraging him to leave.
Right. And he could have, when he was on that lower level of the penthouse, he could have left at that point, correct? You would have prevented that.
No, I would not have.
But instead, at some point, he walked up to the mezzanine, and as you say, he rearranged Miss Heard's closet, right?
Well, that wasn't on the mezzanine level. That was on the top level. But yeah, he rearranged the closet.
So he traveled up 2 levels in the penthouse to throw down every rack of clothing that she had, right?
I don't know about every rack, but he definitely threw down some racks of clothes and shoes.
Okay, I believe you said every rack, so that's just why I was asking you to confirm that. You said he threw a rack down the stairs, correct?
Yes.
And then at that point, he went back downstairs?
To the mezzanine level, yes.
Now, that wasn't the only time you learned of Mr. Depp causing damage in Penthouse 5, correct?
Couldn't say for sure. Nothing's coming to mind.
He had, you said he had something on his hand from his injury that he sustained in Australia, right?
Yes, his hand was wrapped.
Now, you weren't in Australia with Mr. Depp and Miss Heard, correct?
I was not.
And what he had on his hand could have been a hard cast, correct?
Sure. I have no idea what was under the wrap.
And isn't it true that while he was on the mezzanine level and Miss Heard and her sister were there, that he was reaching for Amber's hair while he was trying to hit her with that cast, correct?
That is not correct.
And you say that you can't say for sure where Whitney was standing on the mezzanine level during this altercation, correct?
That is correct.
And it's possible that she was standing in between Mr. Depp and Miss Heard then, correct?
No.
Well, you say you can't say for sure where she was standing. So she could have been standing in between Mr. Depp and Miss Heard, right?
No, because I stepped in between Miss Heard and Mr. Depp. So she definitely wasn't standing in between them.
Well, in fact, you saw Mr. Depp push or shove Whitney Heard, correct?
Absolutely not.
And it was only after Mr. Depp pushed Whitney that Amber stepped forward and punched him in the face. Isn't that right?
That is not correct.
Now, moving on to April 2016, you weren't there for the party, you said, correct?
I started my shift while the party was going on.
But you weren't in with the partygoers, you said, right?
I'm going to try something. Don't expect it to sound good.
That's correct.
And you said at some point, Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard went back to Penthouse 3, but you have no idea what went on between them in Penthouse 3 while you weren't there, correct?
I do not.
And you said that you gave security services to Mr. Depp primarily in Los Angeles. Is that right?
Yes, a little bit of travel, but mostly in LA.
Okay, where did you travel to?
Vegas. Up north, we did a road trip, kind of, they called it their honeymoon. So Napa, San Francisco, Big Sur, San Jose. Those are all with Miss Heard. I've taken Mr. Depp to China before.
Okay.
Yeah, and then a bunch of local stuff, Palm Springs, Santa Barbara, stuff like that.
Okay. You weren't on a plane flight from Boston to Los Angeles with Mr. Depp and Amber in May 2014, correct?
I was not.
And you weren't at the Hicksville Trailer Palace in May or June of 2013, correct? With them?
I was not.
You were never in the Bahamas with them, including in August 2014, correct?
I was not.
You were not in the Bahamas with them in December of 2015, correct?
I was not.
You were not in Tokyo with them in January of 2015, correct?
I was not.
You were not in the Eastern Columbia building with them on the evening of December 15th, 2015, correct?
I don't know.
To the best of your recollection.
Yeah, if they were at the loft, I typically worked every night, but nothing about December 15th is popping into my head.
Okay. And you definitely were not in the Eastern Columbia building.
Abby, her dressing is really tripping me out, the way she dressed, because this is not how she dressed. And I personally think that she's copying him with the dressing, like they said. You can really see it. It just tripping me out with the hair and then the outfits and everything. And Abby, you missed it. She spit at her husband. This is what security guard said before. Now he's being cross-examined, the security guard. But she spit at her husband, punched him like she's another dude in a bar, and throwing Red Bull cans at him. Oh, it's just a mess. Let me resume.
With them on the night of May 21st, 2016, were you?
I was not.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. McGill.
All right, redirect.
No, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness subject to recall?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. McGibbon, you're subject to recall. So just to let you know, you're still subject to the rule on witnesses, so you cannot talk to anybody about your testimony or watch any of the proceedings of this case. Okay, sir?
Understood. Ma'am.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
You do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Your next witness.
Mr. Depp calls Jack Wiggum, who should be waiting in the electronic lobby.
Okay. All right, Mr. Wiggum, can you hear me, sir? Could you do me a favor and just count to 1 to 5 for me?
Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, thank you, sir. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Wiggum. Would you please state your full name for the record?
Sure. It's Jack Wiggum.
Where do you live, Mr. Wiggum?
Okay, lady.
Where, if at all, did you earn your undergraduate degree?
I earned a degree in finance from the University of Florida.
In what year, if any, did you graduate from the University of Florida?
1998.
Do you have any graduate degrees, Mr. Wiggum?
I do. I have a law degree also from the University of Florida. Graduated in 2002.
Mr. Wiggum, what do you currently do for a living?
I'm currently a manager representative for artists.
Would you please describe, Mr. Wiggum, for the jury what a manager representative does?
So we, represent writers, directors, actors, actresses, mostly in the pursuit of artistic endeavors. So I primarily focus on film and television, but all artistic endeavors.
How does a manager representative get paid?
Typically via a commission.
What?
Industry standard, 10% of whatever the deal is.
And Mr. Wiggum, what did you do professionally after you earned your JD at the University of Florida?
I was an attorney at a firm called Blau, Gacko and Manges for approximately 3 years. And then I segued from there to a talent agency called CAA, Creative Artists Agency.
In what year?
I agree with you naturally.
I started there in April of 2004.
And Mr. Wiggum, in what capacity did you start working at CAA?
I started at the bottom, in the mailroom, checking mail, and then became an assistant for one of the managing partners. And then in 2007, I believe I became an agent. And then right around 2014, I think, I began co-running the film and talent department there.
And when your job responsibilities shifted to becoming an agent at CAA, would you please describe briefly for the jury what that entailed?
Sure. We were, also looking out for artistic endeavors on behalf of the clients, so writers, directors, actors, actresses, but we were also negotiating deals and, really pursuing film, television, producing deals on behalf of the clients.
Mr. Wiggum, did there come a time when you left CAA?
I did. I left in August of 2020.
What, if anything, did you do professionally after you left CAA in August of 2020?
So I co-founded a management production company called Range Media Partners in August of 2020 and have been working there ever since.
What type of company is Range Media Partners?
It's a management representation production company.
Do you know Johnny Depp?
I do.
Mr. Wiggum, when did you first meet Mr. Depp?
I actually met him very briefly on the set of Black Mass, which was probably, 2014 or 15. And then I met him very briefly at one of his music shows. But more substantively, I sat with him, I believe in the fall of 2016.
Did there come a time, Mr. Wiggum, when you became Mr. Depp's agent?
Yes.
When was that?
Right around October, I believe, or fall of 2016.
Was that when you were still with CAA?
Yes.
When you first started with Mr. Depp as his agent, who, if anyone, assisted you?
I had two partners that I worked with Johnny. One was Brian Lord and the other was Christian Carino.
Since starting to work with Mr. Depp as his agent in October 2016, have you had opportunities to observe him interacting with yourself and others?
Yes.
How would you describe for the jury Mr. Depp's demeanor on those occasions?
Objection relevant. All right. What's the relevance?
The relevance is how he conducts himself professionally, which relates to his reputation, which is at issue.
All right. I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
You may answer the question, Mr. Wiggum.
Sure. Johnny was always very nice, sweet, in fact, artistic, polite, and, very thoughtful, kind of uniquely thoughtful about how are you doing? How's your family? He was just a thoughtful person. He always has been.
Did he seem genuine?
Objection leading. Standing objection.
To what extent, if any, did he seem genuine?
I'm going to object. How would he know? I'm not sure what objection that is. Or speculation. Speculation. Foundation.
I believe he can testify to that.
I'll allow. Go ahead.
Her Honor says you may answer that question.
Okay. I found Johnny to be authentic. There was a genuine kindness.
And Mr. Wiggum, prior to your first becoming Mr. Depp's agent in 2016, October 2016, who was his agent prior to that?
I believe it was Tracy Jacobs at a company called UTA.
And before you took over from Tracy Jacobs as Mr. Depp's agent, what if any research?
I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. I just want to get to his graphs. All right, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit.
Which is the core of the issue.
If you actually go into any bookstore in Israel and ask for the new.
Thank you, Your Honor. Were you aware of Mr. Depp's professional reputation at the time, film and a studio film?
When they're made.
Starting in October.
They had pre-existing deals that we serviced. And
when was that shot?
I believe that film was shot in the fall of 2017.
What was?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna stop this one. I'm gonna play the clip that happened. That was today. So, hold a second. Wait a minute. Oh, what busy mama says. She said, shaking my head all around this thing. All right. Let me listen to the music, ladies and gentlemen, while I find the next clip. Okay, I have the next clip. Now, this one here is, okay, this is day 13. So this is today. And there's Amber Heard's attorney motion to dismiss Johnny Depp's evidence. They was panicking, but I didn't get to see everything today. So I'm kind of like, this is my first time watching it with y'all because I was so busy at work, so I couldn't catch so much of it. So let's watch it together. Let's get it.
The first two at this point. And because it seems like plaintiff is proceeding under a theory of defamation by implication, under the Pendleton case, 290 Virginia 162, plaintiff bears the burden of proving that the statements at issue were designed and intended by Ms. Heard to imply a defamatory meaning. Designed and intended to imply a defamatory meaning. So, and to satisfy those first two elements, publication and falsity and defamation or defamatory nature of the statements, Mr. Depp bears the burden of proving that by a preponderance of the evidence.
Hey, Travel, hugs and kisses.
And show that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice. He has a heightened standard of proof that he must prove by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard acted with that malice. So, just want to talk about the two statements on domestic abuse in the op-ed. And Your Honor's well aware of the ample Virginia case law talking about how you have to view the op-ed as a whole. You have to view words in context. So these are the statements that read, then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. And then the other statement that says, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. Now, those statements are entirely opinion, except for, according to Mr. Depp, the discussion of domestic abuse. So the statement, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and the statement in the second sentence that Mr. Depp was a man accused of abuse. The rest of those are inactionable opinion statements. Now, the evidence adduced thus far, Your Honor, shows that Mr. Depp can't sustain a claim on these for two reasons. First of all, the statements are true on their face. I don't think that there's any dispute about that, and that's been the subject of some testimony in this case. 2 years before she wrote the op-ed, Ms. Heard did, in fact, become a public figure representing domestic abuse when she obtained a domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, and Mr. Depp was indeed accused of abuse. Those are facts that are true. Now, to the extent that Mr. Depp will argue that he's proceeding on a defamation by implication claim, again, the court should grant the motion to strike because the undisputed evidence is that he did, in fact, abuse Amber. Now, there's a dispute in this case. There's ample evidence that he physically abused Amber, but we acknowledge that there's a dispute in this case on that. But what there isn't a dispute in this case is non-physical abuse. Both Mr. Depp and his expert Shannon Curry have testified that abuse may come in many forms. It may be physical, certainly, but it may also be verbal, maybe emotional, maybe psychological. You'll recall Mr. Depp even kind of setting the baseline for what abuse was when he talked about the non-physical abuse that he allegedly suffered at the hands of his mother. He said it was worse than the beatings. And the example he gave was that his mom used to call him one eye as an example because he had a lazy eye, I guess, as a child. That was something that Mr. Depp himself said was abuse, his mom calling him one eye. So he's setting aside the evidence of physical abuse in this case, which is already overwhelming. Mr. Depp's claims relating to these two statements should be stricken because of the ample and undisputed evidence in the record of non-physical abuse by Mr. Depp toward Ms. Heard. There's
They don't want you making this movie. Who's they?
evidence in the record of recordings, messages, including messages written in blood with his finger, blood and paint, vile names, shouting.
I have 12 people in the chat. Make sure you hit the like, please. Help a sister out. Hit the like.
Of him calling Ms. Heard, like I say, numerous vile names. There's the audio of him asking her to cut him and whether she wanted to be cut. So there's plenty of evidence out of the words or out of the mouth of the plaintiff in this case that constitutes non-physical abuse of Ms. Heard. Again, under the standards set forth by his expert and the plaintiff himself. Those are far worse than his mother calling him one eye when he was a child. In addition to that, Your Honor, there's Travis McGivern's testimony from yesterday in which he testified that at a minimum on the night of March 23rd, 2015, both parties were being verbally abusive to each other. Mr. McGivern also testified about Mr. Depp, quote, rearranging her closet, throwing racks of clothing down onto the floor and throwing at least one rack down the stairs. Now in California, property damage alone can be a basis for getting a temporary restraining order under California law. So further evidence of non-physical abuse or non-physical toward Ms. Heard. You saw the cupboards in the suites or kitchen video. And then Dr. Laurel Anderson, Your Honor, testified that she believed that the parties engaged in mutual abuse and that at least some of the time that was initiated by Mr. Depp. This is all evidence. We haven't gotten to put on our case yet. And to the extent this case proceeds, and that will start now. But this is all evidence that has come in while plaintiff controls the playing field of what evidence has come in, and he can't overcome that. In this case, Your Honor, if Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard physically, verbally, emotionally, or psychologically, even one time, then she wins on those claims. Then she wins. It's that simple. And the evidence is overwhelming and undisputed in the ways that I've just described that he did. So for that reason, Your Honor, those claims should be stricken. And I'll just cite the Union of Needle Trades versus Jones case. This is 268 Virginia 512 that states, if the plaintiff does not establish the falsity of the statement by a preponderance of the evidence in his case in chief, he has not met his threshold burden, and the trial court should strike the evidence and grant summary judgment to the defendant. That's exactly what should happen here. Now I'll move on to the second issue, which is the headline containing the phrase sexual violence. That should be stricken for a couple reasons. Well, first, Your Honor, the evidence has established that Ms. Heard didn't write the headline. Mr. Doherty from the ACLU, that's the only evidence that's come in this case thus far. Plaintiffs control the evidence.
Well, I understand, but there's also a stipulation that Ms. Heard would not be called in the plaintiff's case because they would then use her testimony for part of their case in your case, right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Yeah, I agree. And that goes to a different issue that I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing that the court should strike because they haven't put Ms. Heard on to say, to testify about the headline.
But I assume part of that would be that they would, I guess they intend to get from Ms. Heard is that she either wrote it or republished it.
Yeah, what happened the next day is Ms. Heard posted it on her Instagram account and said, look what I published yesterday in the Washington Post. So she adopted the title, and her name was on the article which contained the title.
And Mr. Ronborn, the only reason I'm sorry to interrupt you, only because I know that was a stipulation, so it's hard for me to say that that's all the evidence for motion to strike if there's a stipulation that they're still going to get more evidence in on that particular issue.
I think, and I'm happy to hand the court the transcript of the April 8th hearing, because one of the things that we're not arguing today is that because they haven't put in evidence of I think it was a tweet, but Mr. Chu says it was Instagram, I don't know, whatever it was, that because there was.
It was a tweet adopting the op-ed she published the day before in the Washington Post.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm not arguing today is that because they haven't gotten that tweet into evidence or had Ms. Heard say that she tweeted that we're entitled to summary judgment this one. I'm not arguing that, but that's all that we discussed on April 8th. And I'm happy to hand the transcript up, Your Honor. And we actually never, it wasn't a stipulation. It was simply an agreement that they didn't need to call her in their case in chief to make that point. And then Ms. Bredehoft said, we'd have to agree on the language of any stipulation. They haven't proposed anything to us and haven't gotten back to us. So I think that that's only relevant. We're not basing our request for motion to strike here on Ms. Heard not having testified to sending that tweet.
But you're saying for the motion to strike, the only evidence before the court is that the Washington Post wrote that title.
Correct. And that's very different from what happened the next day. The stipulation didn't go toward who wrote the title. That was never part of anything. And it's undisputed. And Ms. Heard will testify that she didn't write the title.
Well, I understand that, but I
it's
think
not undisputed, Your Honor. I apologize for interrupting.
Okay. But I think the issue is that whether it was republication.
Well, and I'll get to that next.
Right, I know, but see, the problem is, how do I do a motion to strike when that evidence isn't before me yet?
Well, the republication isn't. So the evidence that's before you is that the Washington Post wrote the headline, or that Ms. Heard didn't. And that's the only evidence. And that's not going to change. The tweet, which was the only subject of the discussion of the pretrial conference, where there was no stipulation, it was just an agreement that we're not going to base a motion to strike on them not introducing evidence of the tweet. That was what it was. I'm happy to hand the transcript up if Your Honor would like to see that. But that isn't actionable because under the Lakova versus Halper case, 995 F3rd 134, retweeting a link doesn't constitute republication. Now that case,
well, it does if you add something to it, but I just don't know the evidence.
Your Honor, very quickly, it's a judicial admission. They admitted in Ms. Heard's answer, she admitted to the tweet. So that establishes that she adopted the op-ed in its entirety, and it was discussed. We talked about judicial admissions. One was the op-ed itself. The second, and this is reflected.
Your Honor, if I could finish my argument, I mean, I would appreciate it.
I can't wait to oppose this.
That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So,
sir.
and again, we can.
Ladies and gentlemen, listen very clearly what they both have to say. The other, Johnny Depp lawyer is going to come up. He's going to speak too, but listen to everything. I resume.
We can look at the transcript.
You understand my concern.
I do understand your concern, and I guess what I'm saying is that there's two levels. One is there's no dispute, and there's not going to be a dispute that she did not write the headline. So then you look at is the tweet actionable? And the argument here is that as a matter of law, retweeting something isn't actionable. And so as under the Lakova case, 995 F3rd 134, in that case dealt with hyperlinks and how those aren't actionable. But to be very clear, nothing that was discussed on April 8th, nothing that was discussed at that pretrial conference was in any way relating to any stipulation about who wrote the headline. It was simply that they need not call Ms. Heard in their case in chief to get her to say that she sent a certain tweet. And that tweet's not in evidence yet, but I assume that they'll try to put it in evidence at some point. But the tweet doesn't need to be in evidence for you to strike this claim on that basis. So Even assuming that the headline implied certain conduct by Mr. Depp, again, Mr. Depp can't meet his burden of proof on this. Third, Your Honor, he can't prove that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice. Mr. Depp hasn't introduced evidence sufficient to permit him to meet this. Now, again, this is a heightened burden of proof. He has to show actual malice by clear and convincing evidence. And as the
If you want a healthy life, you must have
Heard's intent on April 8th, which of course we didn't. But the only evidence that has been presented in this case, Your Honor, by Mr. Doherty was that the op-ed wasn't Ms. Heard's idea, that the ACLU asked her to write the op-ed, and indeed that they even wrote the first draft, and then that Ms. Heard vetted the finished article with her lawyers and with lawyers from the ACLU to make sure that it wasn't problematic. That is the only evidence in the record. And on that evidence, there cannot be a conclusion that Ms. Heard acted with the actual malice that's necessary, particularly when you consider the heightened burden of proof. So reviewing the op-ed as a whole, with the court acting in its appropriate function as a gatekeeper of the First Amendment, we ask that the court strike plaintiff's evidence and award summary judgment to Ms. Heard, either in whole or in part. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor. May it please the court, Ben Chu for plaintiff Johnny Depp. It's just still morning. Your Honor, if I may approach.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've just handed to Mr. Rottenborn, Your Honor, an opposition.
Nikki!
We had the benefit of seeing Ms. Heard's affirmative motion to strike, but I think we've anticipated the arguments made, such as they are. The court should deny defendant motion to strike because Mr. Depp has come forward in his case in chief with multiple credible witnesses, documents, and authentic tape recordings of Ms. Heard herself, not only satisfying all of the requisite elements of his claim for defamation, including actual malice, but also going the extra mile of showing that Ms. Heard physically abused him. She's the abuser in this courtroom. Your Honor, going back to the standard, as Your Honor is well aware, in considering a motion to strike, the trial court must view the evidence and all reasonable inferences drawn from the evidence in the light most favorable to the plaintiff. Any reasonable doubt as to whether the plaintiff has produced sufficient evidence of the wrong alleged must be resolved in the plaintiff's favor and the motion to strike denied, unquote. And that's the Boeing case, I believe Mr. Rottenborn referred to, 243 Virginia 81 at 81, 1992. Quote, the weight and credibility of the testimony of witnesses are solely matters for the jury. The jury may accept that part of the testimony it believes and reject that which it does not. It is also within the exclusive province of the jury to draw any reasonable inferences from the evidence before it, citing Rate versus Minix, 275 Virginia 579 at 585. In deference and respect to the court's time, Mr. Depp incorporates by reference the legal analysis set forth in the court's opinion letter dated March 27th, 2020, overruling Ms. Heard's demurrer to the 3 defamatory statements at issue. And that letter opinion is attached as Exhibit 1 to Mr. Depp's opposition. That's where the court fulfilled its proper gatekeeping role that Mr. Rottenborn referred to. As a threshold matter, the elements of a defamation claim are the following. Publication of an actionable statement with the requisite intent, citing the Shaker versus Bonfault case, 290 Virginia 81 at 91. As to damages, they are presumed here because Ms. Heard's false allegations of domestic abuse, sexual assault, and rape constitute defamation per se, citing the Tronfield case, 272 Virginia 709 713, a 2006 case. As the court noted at page 3 of its opinion letter, typically an editorial or op-ed column is ordinarily not actionable because it appears in a place devoted to or in a manner usually thought of as representing personal viewpoints. However, Virginia recognizes that, quote, a defamatory charge may be made by inference, implication, or insinuation, citing the Carwell case. and a statement expressing a defamatory meaning may not be apparent on its face, citing Pendleton, with which the court is quite familiar, 290 Virginia at 172. Accordingly, in order to render words defamatory and actionable, it is not necessary that the defamatory charge be in direct terms, but may be made indirectly, and it matters not how artful or disguised the modes in which the meaning is concealed, if it is in fact defamatory. Carwile, 196 Virginia at 7. And based on the authority and reasoning set forth in pages 4 through 8 of the opinion letter, the three statements at issue are actionable under a theory of defamation by implication. Mr. Depp established in his case in chief that Ms. Heard in fact made all three of the defamatory statements at issue, as the court admitted into evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, the op-ed Ms. Heard published in her own name in the Washington Post on December 18th, 2018. And let's take the three statements and the proof that has been adduced. Statement number 1, Amber Heard, quote, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change." Per page 6 of the opinion letter, the first statement could reasonably convey the alleged defamatory meaning, i.e. that Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard, to its readers without extending the words beyond their ordinary and common acceptation. See Pendleton, 290 Virginia at 172, also citing the Carwile case. Resolving every fair inference in Mr. Depp's favor, this statement could reasonably imply that the sexual violence Ms. Heard spoke up against was in fact perpetrated by Mr. Depp. Mr. Depp produced several credible witnesses and documents proving that Ms. Heard was implying that he committed sexual violence against her. Mr. Depp himself testified to that, as did his sister, Christy Dabrowski. Mr. Depp's former agent, Christian Carino, testified that, as did his current agent, Jack Wiggum. But perhaps most convincing of all, and most disgusting of all, was the testimony of the ACLU's Terrence Doherty, a lawyer nonetheless. Mr. Doherty testified, among other things, that when they were pitching the op-ed to the Washington Post, they stated, "Hey, Michael, wondering if we might interest you in a piece by Amber Heard, who, as you may recall, was beaten up during her brief marriage to Johnny Depp, on what the incoming Congress can do to help protect women in similar situations." Mr. Doherty also testified that everybody understood, as Ms. Heard and the ACLU clearly intended, that this statement and the other two statements referred directly to Mr. Depp. Quote, "This is an article that was in USA Today and specifically ties Amber's statement in her op-ed piece to Johnny Depp." And when Jessica Weitz, who actually wrote the op-ed that Ms. Heard later adopted, she says, quote, to Mr. Doherty, "So much for not mentioning JD," when the USA Today made clear that they, like everybody else who read the op-ed, understood that, as Ms. Heard clearly intended, it referred to Mr. Depp, which makes her Instagram post 2 days before the trial began that she didn't mention Mr. Depp all the more outrageous. Your Honor, there is Ms. Schulman, also at the ACLU, acknowledged that Ms. Heard's op-ed referred to Mr. Depp. So it's very clear that the ACLU and Ms. Heard intended, that was the whole purpose of this, so that they could get interest in this and it would coincide with the premiere of Aquaman, because otherwise no one would have been interested in anything written by Ms. Heard. Mr. Doherty also testified that Ms. Heard only paid 1.3, actually she didn't even pay all that, out of the $3.5 million that she had pledged to the ACLU. And then they helped her lie about it. And it's one thing, Your Honor, for her to stiff the ACLU, which frankly played a reprehensible role in this case. It's quite another for her to fail to honor her obligation to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles with sick and dying children. And that she failed to do as well. And as Your Honor has mentioned,
facts.
The fact that she put her name on that article means that she is responsible for all of those statements, which she specifically adopted later. And I'll go through the other two statements quickly, Your Honor.
Well, can we stay on this one for one moment, though?
Yes, Your Honor.
Because do you agree that the only evidence before that we've heard in this trial, as far as the title of the op-ed, is that even Mr. Doherty, I believe, testified to it, that it was something that Washington Post wrote?
Well,
for the one online.
He's not our witness, Your Honor. That's a witness from the ACLU.
Well, I understand, but it's the only evidence I have.
I respectfully disagree, Your Honor.
All right.
But the only real evidence Your Honor has is Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, which is Amber Heard putting her name on the entire article, including the title. That is the only evidence before you. The ACLU was a co-conspirator with Ms. Heard, and whether they say, oh, maybe the Washington Post wrote it, that's not the end of the story. All she has done is create an issue of fact as to whether she wrote the title or not.
So you're saying just having that exhibit in evidence is enough?
Absolutely, absolutely, Your Honor. Her name is on the article.
Okay.
What does an average reader expect? So that alone is sufficient to beat a motion to strike. If they want to come back later and say, gee, she didn't write the title, as if that were a defense, I hope they make that argument. I hope they make that argument to the jury, because it's about as credible as her argument that, oh, I wasn't referring to Johnny Depp. She didn't have to. And the testimony of Terrence Doherty was very clear that when they took out the references to Johnny Depp, no one was interested in this article anymore. So she said, put it back in, make it more spicy so people would read. Otherwise, she couldn't get it in the Washington Post. It would be back in Teenage Vogue, which is the other publication that was considering publishing it, because no one was interested in what she had to say unless she was defaming Mr. Depp. But if I could go to the second statement, I'll try to be quick, Your Honor. 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. As for the second statement, defendant called herself a public figure representing domestic abuse, which can be read to imply that she became a representative of domestic abuse because she was abused by Mr. Depp, not just because she spoke out against alleged abuse. This inference can be drawn without extending the language beyond its ordinary common acceptation, citing Carlisle, 196, Virginia at 8. Your Honor, quote, to constitute a publication, it is not necessary that the contents of the writing should be made known to the public generally. It is enough, it is said, if they are made known to a single person, unquote, citing Snyder versus Fatherly, 158, Virginia, 335 at 350. Everybody and his grandmother testified that Ms. Heard was referring to her bogus ex-parte TRO that she obtained on May 27th, 2016. And it was interesting that Mr. Depp's own lawyer said that she wasn't even provided notice. So Ms. Heard made very sure that Mr. Depp wouldn't have notice of the ex-parte TRO. And Ms. Heard herself, the evidence shows, knew that Mr. Depp, having just suffered the loss of his mother, was already on the other side of the country, was already in New York at the time of this TRO, and was heading to Europe for several weeks. So she knew she didn't need any protection from him. This was...
Ladies and gentlemen, you listen to this. This woman is trifling. She's evil. She's just pure flipping evil. Amber Heard, Robbie Givens, Jada Pinkett, evil women. I resume.
Just a scam for her to get the $7 million in the divorce settlement that she said she gave to the ACLU. She swore she gave to the ACLU and the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, and she pocketed instead. Mr. Depp, Ms. Dombrowski, Mr. Carino, Mr. Wiggum, and the inimitable Mr. Doherty of the ACLU, which lent its once respected name to Ms. Heard's defamation. So while Ms. Heard may have avoided any direct mention of Mr. Depp's name, there is extensive testimony and evidence in the record showing that the implication of her op-ed could not be more clear, i.e., that Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard during the course of their marriage. Under Virginia law, quote, it is not necessary that the defamatory charge be in direct terms, but it may be made indirectly. And it matters not how artful or disguised the modes in which the meaning is concealed if it is in fact defamatory. Citing Carlisle, well, we can argue as to how artful it was, but the implication was very clear, as the court has previously ruled, or not law of the case, but as the court has persuasively written in its opinion letter. Let's move to the falsity of Ms. Heard's ever-evolving and ever-escalating change of IPV and sexual assault. Mr. Depp's sworn denial is all he needs to survive a motion to strike, but there's a lot more than that, Your Honor, and I'll try to be brief. 3 police officers, actually 4, but the 3 who testified already, Officers Sines, Haddon, and Gatlin, testified unequivocally that Ms. Heard did not have a mark on her on the evening of May 21, 2016. And I could go through, I'll just go through very quickly. Officer Haddon, strike that, Officer Melissa Sines on jury trial day 10. Question, did you provide a copy of this pamphlet to Amber Heard? Answer, I did not. I didn't identify her as a victim of domestic abuse. The next day, Officer Melissa Sines. Okay, at this time, did you notice any injuries on Ms. Heard? Officer Sines, I did not. Question, okay, were you looking to see if she had any injuries on her at the time? Officer Sines, yes, I was. Question, and so you were looking to see if Ms. Heard had any injuries and you determined that she did not. Is that accurate? Officer Sines, correct. Question, okay.
Okay, I'm gonna read this poll, so I want to do another poll. I'm gonna resume back to it. I just want to read this poll and then do another poll, and we don't have much longer, so hang in there, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, where's the poll at? The poll. Okay, we have 11 votes, and which team are you on? 100% Johnny Depp all the way. Amber Heard, you didn't get one from my audience. Ha ha ha. All right, I'm gonna put another poll up. Let me resume.
And was the lighting good enough in the hallway for you to make that determination? Answer, yes, the hallway was well lit. Officer Gatlin's testimony was the same, and he had the body cam. Officer Haddon's testimony was the same. The testimony of nurses Debbie Lloyd and Erin Gorham, who, like the police officers, did not work for Mr. Depp. In fact, they worked for Dr. Kipper, also belied Ms. Heard's false allegations of abuse. Isaac Baruch and Alejandro Romero both testified that they saw Ms. Heard repeatedly and in the clear light between May 21, 2021, which was the last time Mr. Depp saw her before leaving on the Hollywood Vampires tour. The next time he was to see her was when Ms. Heard begged him to come see her in San Francisco, which is hardly the act of a domestic abuse victim. So we have Isaac Baruch and Mr. Romero saying that they saw Ms. Heard repeatedly in the interval of time between May 21 and May 27, when she obtained the farce ex parte TRO, and they saw no marks on her face and no swelling. Two witnesses, Mr. Baruch and Brandon Patterson, saw the video of Ms. Heard and her sister Whitney pantomiming the fake punch after this alleged incident of abuse. Ms. Heard's former personal assistant, Kate James, and several other witnesses, including Dr. David Kipper, saw no violence by Mr. Depp and no injuries to Ms. Heard. Indeed, witness after witness has come forward to testify that Ms. Heard, far from being a domestic figure representing domestic violence, unquote, is in fact a recidivist perpetrator of domestic violence on Mr. Depp and others. We have the testimony, the harrowing testimony of Mr. Depp himself, who described several witnesses. One, as Your Honor will recall, when he was hiding in the bathroom after escaping one of her attacks, and she claims to have hurt her foot kicking the door. Mr. Depp opens the door to see if she's hurt, and then she kicks the door on him and punches him. We have the incident of December 15, 2015, when Ms. Heard threw punches at him wildly at the back and side of his head. Mr. Depp testified that he ducked and covered to protect his face. Eventually, he turned around to grab her and stop her arms from flailing. December 15 in the Bahamas, during an argument, Ms. Heard grabbed a can of mineral spirits and threw it at Mr. Depp's face, striking him in the forehead, bridge, and nose area, and the jury saw a photograph of the bridge on the bruise of his nose. We have testimony from Mr. And by the way, Tara Roberts, who is the manager of the island, confirmed that the incident with the mineral spirits. You have Mr. Depp's testimony of what happened on April 22nd, 2016. And we've heard testimony today from Erin Gorham-Filati that Mr. Depp was very responsive, was very sociable, was not in any way inebriated that day when Ms. Heard says he was, and she attacked him that night as well. And I'm getting to the end of this, Your Honor.
From our very own guts.
We have Ms. Heard's own admissions. We have her admitting to hitting Mr. Depp, and her only intention was that she wasn't punching him, she was just hitting him. We have testimony from Travis McGivern that on February 23rd, 2015, Ms. Heard threw and hit Mr. Depp with a can of Red Bull and then sucker punched him with a closed fist. Finally, we have a rather stunning testimony of Ben King, quite a credible witness who accompanied Ms. Heard on the flight back from Australia, where Ms. Heard admits to him in a rhetorical question, quote, "Did you ever totally lose it on someone you love?" Which was, we would respectfully submit, an admission of her severing the top or the tip of Mr. Depp's finger. Finally, Your Honor, statement number three, quote, I have the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. Again, quoting very briefly from page 7 of the court's opinion letter, quote, drawing every fair inference in plaintiff's favor, the court can fairly conclude the defendant's statement that she saw how institutions protect men accused of abuse could reasonably convey to its recipients that she saw how Mr. Depp was protected by institutions that he used her and spoke up against it. Your Honor, again, we have multiple testimonies from multiple people, including Jack Wiggum and all the others mentioned, that this was a reference to that. Your Honor, again, the lies that have already been exposed, that Ms. Heard has told about the charitable contributions, the incidents in this case, and again, I'll just cite a couple of more. The testimony of Isaac Baruch, when Mr. Baruch saw Ms. Heard on June 3, after she'd gone through with the sham ex-party TRO, and Mr. Baruch was asked, did she say anything in response? And Mr. Baruch
I'm going to speed up a little bit.
In response to that, she, meaning Ms. Heard, looks at me and said, I told Johnny I don't want anything. The lawyers are making me do all of this. And that's what she said. Well, the lawyers are making her do all of that. And apparently she wanted the $7 million for herself. She even lied about the final insult left on the marital bed after her 30th birthday party. And it was quite telling that she admitted to Starling Jenkins, a former United States Marine, that this was a terrible prank gone awry. Well, she lied about that too. In fact, she said Mr. Depp was crazy to even allege that she could have done such a thing. Well, she admitted it to Mr. Jenkins. Per Tronfield, as cited earlier, Mr. Depp does not have to prove damages because this is defamation per se. In fact, these involve some of the most heinous crimes any man or woman can be accused of. However, he has done so. Jack Wiggum tested yesterday that the impact of the op-ed was catastrophic on Mr. Depp's personal and professional life, that it was a $22.5 million loss on Pirate 6 and another $20 million on others. We've had the testimony. So we have Mr. Wiggum testifying as to the 22.5 lost on Pirate 6 and another 20 lost on the other films, the other studio films, the indie films, and the other ways Mr. Depp would have made income. We have Richard Martz's testimony, Douglas Banya's testimony, and the testimony of Michael Spindler just this morning. Finally, Your Honor, none of Ms. Heard's affirmative defenses, which would include, her trying to create an issue of fact on the title, can support a motion to strike, as to which she bears the burden of proof of her affirmative defenses. Quote, whether the defendants have met their burden cannot be resolved when considering a motion to strike. See 243 Virginia at 83. And just to respond to Mr. Rottenborn's citation to the Lachova case, which we hadn't seen until he mentioned it today, I would only note, Your Honor, that defendant admits that she tweeted a link to the online version of the op-ed at paragraph 97 of her answer, though again, the admission of Exhibit 1 is more than enough to survive the motion to strike. And the Lachova case at 995 F3rd 134 holds that republishing a hyperlink doesn't necessarily start the statute of limitations, not that a hyperlink cannot be defamatory. So with that, Your Honor, we respectfully request that the court deny the motion to strike in full, and let's hear from Ms. Heard. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Your motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can only assume that Mr. Chu wrote that speech for an audience outside the court because it didn't really address my arguments. I'm going to focus on what our specific arguments are for the motion to strike, Your Honor. Mr. Chu spent almost 30 minutes of the court's time talking about the disputed evidence of physical abuse in this case, which Ms. Heard hasn't even put on her case. And I can tell you she's not the abuser. And if the case moves forward, she and her witnesses will put on even more evidence of the physical abuse she suffered at the hands of Mr. Depp. But that's not the basis for our motion right now, Your Honor. He talks about how Mr. Depp had a sworn denial and that should count. We read his testimony. He claims he didn't strike her. But again, that's not the basis for our motion. The basis for our motion is the clear and undisputed evidence of non-physical abuse. By his definitions, by his standards, by the standards of his expert, there is no dispute that Mr. Depp abused Amber. And therefore, if he did it even one time, there's no dispute that even under their theory of the case, the implication that they want the jury to draw from the article, which again, I'm not arguing for the purposes of today, because under the legal standard, I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to waste the court's time with that. But even under their standard, the undisputed evidence is that Mr. Depp did commit abuse against Ms. Heard, and therefore that those first two statements were false. That's our argument on that. As to the headline, it's funny, Mr. Chu we played, 2 or 3 hours of an ACLU deposition. Now he says, well, that wasn't our witness. It was his witness, Your Honor. He just spent 10 minutes talking about what Mr. Doherty said. And Mr. Doherty testified that the Washington Post wrote the headline. That is the only evidence, Your Honor. I understand he says, well, Exhibit 1 has her name on it. Exhibit 1 has her name on it. But the only evidence in this case about who wrote that headline is Mr. Doherty's testimony. It is undisputed. They could have put anyone else on. They could have called Ms. Heard for that because that was not part of the stipulation at the pretrial conference. It was only the tweet that we talked about, Your Honor, and they chose not to do that. Now, Ms. Heard will testify she didn't write that headline, so it wouldn't have helped them. But they've had 3 weeks to put on their case, Your Honor. They've controlled the playing field of evidence. There is no dispute.
Like, this is insane. This product, the pop-on veneers, it's a perfect way for a teeth makeover. You just put them in and you just basically push them up a little bit and they just pop. Go ahead, pop them in. It's completely straight. My teeth are completely straight, completely fitting. There's no gap.
That Ms. Heard did not write that headline. No dispute. Simply saying, well, her name is attached to it, that can't overcome the testimony of the ACLU. They call them a co-conspirator. Of course, Mr. Depp chose not to sue them. But the testimony of Terrence Doherty that she didn't write that headline, that takes care of the sexual violence headline, Your Honor. And I'm not going to take up any more of the court's time addressing portions of Mr. Depp or Mr. Chu's argument that don't go to our motion, unless Your Honor has any specific questions. But I want to be respectful.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, for this motion, I've taken the arguments of counsel, and last night I reviewed all of the evidence that has been submitted in this matter. So as to the second and third alleged defamatory statements, at the motion to strike at this juncture, I view the evidence in the light most favorable to the plaintiff and reasonable inferences from the evidence to the plaintiff. And if there is a scintilla of evidence that a reasonable juror could weigh, then the matter survives a motion to strike. In this matter, there is evidence in the case that a jury could weigh that the statements were made by the defendant, that the statements were about the plaintiff, that the statement was published, that the statement is false, and the defendant made the statement knowing it to be false, or the defendant made it so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth. The weight of that evidence is up to the fact finder. So the motion to strike is denied as to statement 2 and 3. The motion to strike as to statement 1, I'm going to take under advisement because if it's not a stipulation, I'm not sure what it is, but there seems to be an agreement that the tweet of Ms. Heard is part of the plaintiff's evidence, which is not in evidence at this point. So I can't rule on that statement, whether or not it is just a tweet or if it's some sort of republication or something. I don't know because I haven't seen it yet. So as to the motion to strike on statement 1, I'm going to take under advisement because ruling on it now, it would be premature because I just don't have that evidence in the case. Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
All right. Since it's 12:30, you want to just take lunch? Go ahead and let the jurors go to lunch and come back at 1:30. Does that sound okay? Okay. All right, do you want to do it now? Okay, sure. All right.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, with so much echoing. I didn't realize I didn't put it on mute with the StreamYards. I hope y'all was able to hear the stuff that he said because he was really breaking it down. Were you able to make out what he was saying? I apologize. Because when I keep switching back and forth, you have to press the mute. And Jack always tell me, press the mute when you sharing the screen so you can hear things clearly. Okay, let's see what this naturally said. This is a job, and this is what he's getting paid for. Ooh, 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 ooh. All right, naturally says he could have up to 45 minutes. I don't care. Amber Heard's team is scared. Yeah, because he was breaking it down. I'm so mad I didn't press the mute. Oh my gosh. If the judge would have thrown it out, it would have been all over for Johnny Depp. So the judge didn't throw it out because I missed like the last part. That clip is over. So it didn't throw it. Thank God. Oh gosh, because you're right. He would have been done. Okay, so you're able to make out. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, because I know what the echo is like annoying and everything. But Jack, do you have anything to say? I don't want to hold people up here any longer. I was gonna play some audio, but I'll try to do that another day. Jack, you around? You have anything to say? And if anybody have any comments, questions, concern, put in the chat box here. And what the heck just happened here?
More madness.
You said more madness. Yeah, it really is. It's just straight up madness. It just won't stop. Okay. You said I heard Oh, so you say no, the judge didn't throw it out, right? All right, so good. I think that's what you're saying. Okay, Nikki said they are trying to block her from testifying. I'm starting to notice that. I think so too, because they know she's not normal. And they know she gets up there, they done. They done. They are truly done. I think they're trying to avoid it because they know everybody with their popcorn, crunch and munch and cocktails, water, whatever you like. They sitting around waiting. She gonna get on that stand and she's gonna blow a fuse. Okay, what else? Yeah, Purple Hearts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, exactly. Okay, naturally knows. All right, thank you. And yep. So, ladies and gentlemen, wait a minute. Let's get some music up in here. Ladies and gentlemen, another episode of Amber Heard. No, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. We will see what's going to happen next. Today is day 13. So we're going to see what happens on day 14. And if possible, I will try to do something tomorrow evening. But Friday, I will do like a long one or whatever, a long line. It'll be the morning to the afternoon. So anybody's welcome to come to share your thoughts and opinions. You could pop in and out, or you could stay, or you could watch a replay. I don't know. I know people's busy. They're working in the daytime, so they might not be able to be here. But if you can, I greatly appreciate it. All right, yes, I'm doing a lot of commentary on this because it's about relationships. And this is very interesting because men get abused too. And my channel is not just for women, it's for men too. Okay? Men bump up with a lot of trifling, deadly women out here. But Johnny Depp, I have to say is, you got caught with the young girl. She was in her mid-20s or late 20s when you met her. And you was pushing 50. So I guess she made you feel young again. I don't know. Whatever it was. But look what happened. But Johnny, I do feel that you truly loved her. You want nothing but the best for her. You protected her through all her craziness. But she turned around and stabbed you in the back. Yes, she did. And hurt your career. And I'm proud of you, Johnny Depp, for bringing this to attention to help other men who's going through the same thing. So, Team Johnny, all the way over here. Let me read the rest of the comments here. And, yep, and what else we got? She said they should just settle. Oh, Taco Tuesday. She needs to be arrested. Yes, I agree. She needs to be arrested. All right, let me just read the poll real quick. But we're not going to get into it because I don't want to. This could be one of those heated debates and stuff. Okay, 7 votes. Roe versus Wade. 71% says leave it alone. 29% says get rid of it. Thank you, everybody, for voting. And thank you, mods, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for engaging. And you have yourself a blessed night. And remember, date smart, not thirsty. Because when you date thirsty, you will be a target of being used and abused. And it's not a good thing. Bye.